Talisman mining holds 4,000 square kilometres in the Lachlan Fold Belt of New South Wales, currently one of Australia's exploration hotspots. It's big and a highly prospective holding, and Talisman is undertaking a systematic exploration campaign to close in on its most promising areas. To tell us more, please welcome Talisman's CEO, Sean Vokes.
Thank you, Abby. Thanks to Reed Corporate for putting on this amazing event, and thanks to all of you, the punters that come along and that we rely on so much. I think Talisman last presented at this event in 2018 or 2019, and a lot's changed with Talisman since then. So some of you might be familiar with the old Talisman story. Well, there's a new team, there's new projects, and a new enthusiasm now, and part of that driven by our incumbent non-executive chairman, whom I'll get to shortly. Just a standard disclaimer, again, this is just information, it's not investment advice, but again, I'm happy if you go out and buy some Talisman shares. Just looking at us in a snapshot, I guess we're a northwest or central west of New South Wales focused explorer. We have a large ground package, 6,200 square kilometres, consisting of 5 individual projects. And I think a significant point of difference for Talisman is we have an income stream through an iron ore royalty. And that particular royalty has so far generated us 6.4 million in revenue. So that means that we can conduct things in the junior exploration space that a lot of other juniors can't, because we have that income and we don't need to constantly go out for dilutive capital raisings. So well funded, we have 8.2 million in the bank at the moment, which is growing based on our royalty receipts. A very experienced board and, as I said, a new management team, and we're still actively pursuing growth opportunities in Australia. So just looking at the 5 projects in a little bit more detail, I guess the key thing to take away from this slide, and I should have apologised in advance for the denseness of this slide pack, but Talisman is at the start of its exploration journey. So I can't dazzle you with amazing cross-sections of resources and so forth, but there's a lot of information here, and I'm happy to have you at the booth for a more in-depth discussion with our exploration manager and myself. But the key thing here is there's multiple mineralisation styles and 2 significant structural belts. Just a quick corporate overview. As I mentioned, our non-executive chairman is, I think I can say, ex-lawyer and mining entrepreneur, Mr. Kerry Amanis. There's myself as CEO, as Abby mentioned. Russ Gregory is our exploration manager, ex-Rio Tinto, drilled the discovery hole at Winu. And our non-executive directors, Peter Benjamin, who's a geologist, Brian Dawes, a mining engineer, and Jeremy Kirkwood, who's an investment banker. I guess our purpose is fairly straightforward. It's to generate superior returns for you guys, for our shareholders. And that's what we're about, basing ourselves on those 5 key values there. Our capital structure fairly tight, shares on issue only 188 million, market capitalisation of about 33 million, cash at the moment, as I said, about 8.2, no debt, which leaves us with an enterprise value of around 25 million. Kerry has a significant, is a substantial shareholder with 18%. The rest of the board and management have another 2, so a fifth of our register is board and management. So I'll just talk about our Lachlan project in a bit more detail. And I guess the first few slides are about why this region and why we like it. So why explore here when Talisman was originally floated as a Western Australian focused company? We divested our Western Australian projects and we were looking for new opportunities, and we came across this region in New South Wales which had a significant amount of unpegged ground. It's highly prospective. There's lots of multiple operating long-life gold and base metal mines. And for instance, the CSA mine up near Cobar recently, it's had a long mine life, but it recently sold for almost $1.5 billion Aussie. So a large mineral endowment with lots of prospectivity. And as Abby mentioned, this has been an exploration hotspot, so there is no unpegged ground in this region anymore. We were able to compile a tenement package that allowed us to get ground on the significant regional geological architecture in this area, and that's principle, and I'll get to that in a little bit, of why this ground is so prospective. And just finally, a lot of people would say about this area that it's a mature mineral field, but our research has sort of led us to, yes it is, but there's a bias of known regional mineralisation to areas of residual exposure. So you go and explore what you can see. That means that the areas under transported cover haven't been well explored to date. So that's the opportunity here. So what did we do? We realised that starting afresh, especially with a company that's got a bit of history, we needed a very considered and systematic approach to our exploration. So what we did when Kerry came back on and the management of the company changed, we conducted an independent prospectivity review, and that was done by Dr. John Horonsky, who some of you might know, a leading explorationist. And Dr. Horonsky looked at the Cobar Basin holistically and then came up with these metallogenic framework for the Cobar Basin and these particular corridors. And what that meant is we, looked at the ground that we already had and the prospectivity of that ground in relation to those corridors, and that's the red tram lines that you can see on that diagram. But also, it highlighted several conceptual targets, and we were able to peg those because that ground was unpegged. Subsequent to that, we undertook an internal targeting review with our new geological team, and what that highlighted was two key things. One is that Cobar superbasin mineralisation is structurally controlled, and that structure below cover is poorly understood. And the other thing, the key finding of that review was that electromagnetic surveys have been a key tool in recent discoveries in that area, especially for massive sulphide ore bodies. So then, how do we shorten the discovery time frame? We understand that at the start of the journey, to get to a resource, into development, into production, we need to condense the timeline. We can't trundle along for the next 5 years doing typical exploration in this area. So, based on the interpretation that mineralisation in this region, all of the significant deposits have a gravity anomaly related to structural alteration, and that's usually identified post-discovery, and that airborne electromagnetic surveys, AEM, were a proven discovery tool. And using these techniques, so looking at the geophysics and saying, right, what we need to do is regional scale geophysics. So we flew 2 large regional programs, one a gravity survey and the other one an EM survey. And that's a $2.2 million investment in geophysics on this ground, and it's not something that every junior can do. And the interpretation of that data, we finished flying those, and the interpretation of that data is currently underway with our geophysical consultants, Southern Geoscience. So just now honing in on our Central Lachlan project, you can see it in its entirety there. It's our largest project by far. A strategic acquisition along open ground and along those metallogenic corridors. And the interesting thing here is it's positioned along the Cambeligo Mineral Hill volcanic belt. So it's a significantly underexplored region. For a great deal of time, this side of the basin was considered unattractive. There's known mineralisation and deposits in this area. And, we think the shallow cover in this area has probably hindered past work, but that's where the opportunity lies. We've got 64 targets identified to date, and 15 of those have come from our preliminary interpretation of the geophysics, so not even the serious work on the geophysics yet. And the idea is that we will rapidly screen all our tenure using the geophysics, and then that'll prioritise our most prospective areas, and we can just get it on the ground and get cracking. So looking at the northern portion of this Lachlan project, I think the key takeaways here is that there's a number of conceptual targets on this ground, and the targeting in this area is driven by geological structures. It's a very structurally complex area with minimal recent exploration, as I said, on this side of the basin. You've got the CSA mine over to the left of this picture. Cobar's over to the left as well. And the interesting thing is what work has been done previously has either been insufficient or just not at depth. And just looking at the southern portion of that tenure, again, lots and lots of showings here, structurally driven, multiple mineral systems. There's a lot of cover in this area and erosion, and we just highlighted some of the preliminary data from the gravity survey shown there. We've got multiple work programs in this area coming up, a large auger program and some air core and a couple of thousand metres of RC. And I'll just give you an example here of, we released this yesterday. It's from some recent drilling we did at one of the Prospects Kaolin shaft, and this is just assays from 4 of the 10 holes that were drilled. But again, you get this. It looks like we're potentially on the edge of a larger VMS system here. So there's lots of smatterings of grade through there. All 4 holes came back mineralised, which is really encouraging. We've also got the aptly named Elvis Porphyry Copper Gold project. That's out near Parkes. Again, this was a first in line competitive acquisition of open ground that we pegged in late 2021. And this is near Alkane's Tomanley project. So we think we've got the right geology there and some mapped gossans. If we look now out further to the east, we've got the Dandelu Copper project. Again, this is just a conceptual target. It's all undercover with no previous exploration, but it was identified by Dr. Horonsky as a potential good place to go and explore. And then if we go down to the south of the Cobar Basin, we've got 2 tenements there we picked up. The interesting thing to note here, the northern tenement was identified through public geophysics done by Geoscience New South Wales, and that southern tenement was actually a Rio Tinto tenement that we were lucky enough to pick up, and it does have a significant unexplained geophysical anomaly at the Toledo prospect with interesting some breccia logged in a pastoral water bore at the end of the hole. So that's a priority target for us to drill. Not forgetting we've got a Lucknow project near Orange. Again, this was one of Australia's earliest high-grade commercial goldfields. Bonanza grades here, plus 3 ounce dirt. I'll just point out that we've got an area of interest. We're just negotiating with landholders here because of its proximity to Orange. The landholder negotiations take a little bit longer. It's a sensitive area, but the potential remains here for moderate tonnage, but very high-grade gold. Just quickly, if it ever stops raining in New South Wales, we'll be able to get on the ground and complete some of this work, but we're very active over the next 6 months. Just touching very briefly on our approach to business development and the way we assess opportunities. Basically, we've been looking for projects in Australia, I guess in the multiple commodity suites. But the issue has always been making sure that we pay the right price for the assets that we're looking at, and we're looking at everything from a exploration project right through to potential near-term production. And I guess a lot of that is based on where we think we might be, and we're cognizant of where we might be in the current price cycle. Who knows? Each metal is slightly different, and everyone in this room has probably got a different view of where metals are in the current price cycle. But I just wanted to draw out that we're cognizant of the price cycle for each metal, and that we need to make sure that we can generate long-term shareholder value with any acquisition that we do. So just in summary then, we're poised for discovery. I think Talisman's got all the right ingredients, significant, highly prospective tenure, multiple commodity exposure, an increasing understanding of tenure prospectivity and mineralisation vectors. We're well funded with an income stream, and that income stream is significant. We've got a focused and experienced team, an extensive pipeline of planned exploration activity, and we're actively seeking additional growth opportunities in base and precious metals. So with all those ingredients, I think we've got the right opportunity to create the next multi-billion-dollar minerals business. And thank you.